Well, that is exactly what we have to look at this very moment in close cooperation with the Ministry of Interior, because it is an unknown perpetrator that opened fire on two ISAF service members who were then found dead in their office. So therefore, the investigation that is ongoing has to be pretty much a criminal investigation, as this is a type of murder that happened inside the Ministry of the Interior. And we have to very carefully look into what were the reasons behind this, who was it, how could this happen. It's a tense situation, and we will have to work very, very closely with the Ministry of Interior on this one.
The Taliban, though, did claim responsibility for this attack, and there are reports suggesting that the gunman was an Afghan policeman, or at least that he may have posed as an Afghan policeman. Can you confirm these reports?
Well, it is not uncommon that the Taliban, quickly after any incident happens in the country, are claiming responsibility, in particular if it fits into their agenda. Again, we have to look into this incident in detail. We have to find out who the shooter was, who the perpetrator was, who did this cowardice act, together with the authorities in the Ministry of Interior. And then after we've come to the solution of this crisis, draw the necessary conclusion. What were the reasons behind it? How was it possible in this secure place, in this secure environment? And what were the reasons behind it?
Well, looking at the reasons behind it, do you see a connection between this incident and the recent burning of the Quran at Bagram Air Base?
That is too early to say at the present stage, and we would not prejudge that there is a direct linkage between the two things. We have seen a week of demonstrations on the streets against the act of Monday, where in a very grave mistake, religious scripture, including Qurans, were brought to the burn pit in Bagram, which led to the demonstrations that we have now seen over many days of justifiedly angry Afghans. Unfortunately, some of these demonstrations turning violent despite calls of Afghan leadership, political leadership and religious leadership to express contempt but to be peaceful. The Afghan police over this week has executed a fabulous job in crowd and riot control. This is a police that has shown great capability. So to make a direct link between the incidents that we have seen on the streets, which have also led to a number of dead on the streets of Afghanistan, and every single one of them, or this incident, is one dead too much.
But many would actually criticize the way the police has handled the situation, with an increasing number of protesters dead every single day. There's no doubt the burning of the Quran has at least acted as a trigger for many people to show their exasperation, their anger at what they see as the continuation of an occupation that isn't bearing fruit, that isn't providing Afghans with more security. Do you see a dynamic at play here, and what are you doing to counter this?
Well, what we have seen over the last days is when dead occurred, it was in those demonstrations, and they were always fewer demonstrations in which violence swept over. And normally the deaths occurred in a few demonstrations and incidents. The vast majority of demonstrations were peaceful. They were countrywide. They were demonstrations of people expressing their anger over what has happened last week on Monday. But the government of Afghanistan and the religious leaders of the country have called for calm, and in general that was followed. But
many people have not followed this, and many people obviously taking to the streets aren't satisfied with the apologies they've heard from US officials, from NATO officials, others. They're not also satisfied with the kinds of explanations they've heard. Initially, NATO officials said that the Qurans were burnt because they may have contained some messages that detainees at Bagram Air Base were passing on to each other. Then we heard that no, the issue might have been unintentional altogether, and that these copies of the Quran were burnt along with many other random books. Which is it? What exactly happened?
Well, there was straight away on Wednesday, following the incident, a combined team investigation of a delegation sent by President Karzai of religious representatives of Afghanistan, of local representatives and of ISAF, who were looking at the scene in Parwan, what had actually happened. The Afghan delegations reported back to the president about their findings, and the American military is looking into this case in great detail to see where wrongdoing has occurred so that the necessary steps can be taken. Unfortunately, this, of course, doesn't reach everybody in Afghanistan and doesn't reach the people on the street in every aspect. You must not forget that communications is not that widespread in Afghanistan that everybody is reached. It leads to misunderstandings. We have seen demonstrations countrywide. It is one of the things that we have to be concerned about and remain concerned about.
Brigadier General, just very briefly, we're running out of time, but just getting back to the incident that took place today at the Interior Ministry. How many of your personnel have you then pulled out of these ministries? How permanent a pullout will this be? And does it not send a signal, perhaps the wrong signal, that when 2 of your men are killed, that you would actually retreat to your barracks?
Well, first step is perfectly logical. As this personnel is accommodated anyhow in the basis of ISAF in the city of Kabul, it was the logical step to pull all these people who are coming from different organizations, liaison officers, technical advisors, supervisors, back to their barracks for accountability, to see that everybody is there. And in the coming hours, we will have to take the decision on who goes back into those ministries, what the continuation of cooperation with the government of Afghanistan will be.